Around every August as far as print submissions. It's no different this year. The categories haven't changed this year. Pretty much remains in place. Everything that we did over the prior 2 years remains in place going forward. This conversation or this talk that's held in July to outline some of the things that judges want. There's always been a couple of different agendas in these conversations, and I think for a time it's been done to death. I didn't want to get into too deep of telling most of you sitting here what's a leading line and you get the exposure correct, but what I've elected to do this time is just take a compilation of different images that we've had in the past 2 competitions that have been awarded ribbons, and wanted to look at some of the outstanding characteristics of those images that allowed them to earn the ribbons at that time. So when we look at the competitions, is it worth it? Is it worth it? They're really a learning opportunity. What I've used them in the past, and I've been in competitions going back to the time the first digital camera I had was about 2006, 2007. I actually was using a, I was taking negatives, scanning them, and using in Photoshop long before I had a digital camera, because I come from film photography going back into the middle 70s when I got a real camera. So I've been doing competitions on and off when I could work. Had a pretty busy work career where I spent a lot of time either in an automobile or in an airplane. So sometimes that was a benefit for me, other times it wasn't. But going through these competitions, I've always found that it was a learning opportunity, particularly seeing what everybody else is producing and looking at it critically. So personal growth through objective feedback, I think that's a real positive benefit of being in the competitions, and learning to look at your own work critically. Looking beyond personal attachments to a photograph. I don't know how many times I've had something that said, this is really special. And it got in front of the judges and it was, meh, move on. That can be a disappointment, but the reality is and we'll talk about this towards the end of this presentation, it really is up to the judges themselves. But you can learn from it because these are people that, like yourself, look at photographs and maybe look more critically at them and come up with what they see and what they don't see. And what is it that you saw that they didn't see? Or what did they see that you don't see? So anyways, these common characteristics, people have talked up here before in this talk, but I can't overstress. I get involved in judging print contests with F3C. The initial impact of that judge looking at that photograph is probably the most important thing you can do with a photograph. It's got to be something that tells the judge, this one's worth looking at. This is not something you're just going to set aside because there's something there that causes that judge to say, what's going on here? And the composition follows that too. These 2 items, in terms of the way I look at it and the way other people look at it, are real top of the mind issues when presenting a photograph. Clear subject, colors and tones, simplicity, timing, decisive moments, perspectives, all of these things you've heard before. I'm just pointing them out here because I wanted to take that opportunity to just look at some of the photographs that we've had in the past that have had these characteristics and given the image the ability to score well. Impact, the importance of a strong first impression. You look at this and you just say, what is going on here? Timing and decisive moments, multiple exposure like this, a lot of work to get this done, to capture this image, capture it accurately, correctly, and then print it. And a perspective that puts the center in the center. The center of that V is the center of the photograph on the turn. Just a well-done photograph and a strong initial impact with it. Strong color and tonal relationships. This image, very simple. Could the maker have eliminated that tree beside the church? Maybe. It's not a major distraction. The image is very simple, and the color tonalities are perfect. Very, very, very heavy chrome on that, very heavy saturation. It just works well. Composition and attention to design elements. This image with the design element of the branch that's holding the dragonfly perfectly illustrates design elements and simplicity in the design elements. Color harmonies also here. The very deep-toned green background, fading to kind of a violet in there also, that are colors that are present in the design element and in the dragonfly itself. Again, the characteristics that we look for in these images really, really very present in that. Technical excellence, focus, exposure, and processing. You look at this image and everyone tells you the eyes go to the light. Well, they do. Is that a distraction? Not in this image to me. The sharpness of the body of the animal and the eyes. I think to me, in an animal image, you quickly go to the eyes to see where are they in focus, but they pull you right in because that's the window of the soul for a leopard or for us. So it is important. It's something that is quickly analyzed by a judge if it's not focused, if it's not exposed correctly, if you've got crushed shadows or just absolutely flat missed highlights, it's an immediate bounce back. Again, looking at the impact, the importance of strong first impressions. Here we have brilliant colors and rainbow of colors in arrangement of three, not covering each other up, excellent background, just punches that image out. Balanced technical and artistic considerations with it, and the light, the proper light used in the composition. Again, nice impact initially with the image. Creativity and originality, technical excellence in focus, exposure, and processing, and appropriate post-processing. This image has all of that. When you look at this, you kind of look and see what is going on here. If you've ever taken night shots, if you've ever taken Milky Way shots, you know the amount of post-processing necessary to get this to work. And then you throw on top of that a brilliant light source that's reflecting off of a low cloud base. Well, where's that light source coming from? You have to look at it and you realize that's a volcano. So how did the maker put this volcano shot together with a night shot, and the night shot's perfect harmony, perfect sharpness? It's a composite, probably. I thought the maker might be here to be able to give us some insight on that, but not this evening. Creative and originality. I've never seen anything like that before. The composition of those two items like that, those two types of images. Unique perspectives. Tonal separation and local contrast in a monochromatic image is the key to the success of that image. We talk about color harmonies, we talk about tonal harmonies and local contrast. The contrast between those two very dark shades of her arms and her back, where the tone differences are the very local tone differences, the contrast differences there are significant and really make that image, help to make that image. But in any monochromatic image, the judge is going to look for tonal separation. Just as in a color image, when the judge is looking at it from a color standpoint, those harmonies need to be there. Composition and design principles. If you're doing a still life, you are the artist. You're the person that's putting the elements, the subjects, into the shot. You get design. You're not taking a brush and drawing them, but you're setting the shot up. Design principles fall in there, as does the effective use of light. lit incorrectly probably would be a disaster. Shadows would be a problem if it isn't lit correctly. She's done well there. This is an interesting image to me. First of all, you hear anybody talks about photographs in contests, they always say you need a good title for it. I come from an automotive background. I know a lot about this car. The French are wonderful at cooking and wine. They're horrible on automobiles. This is the French version of the Volkswagen Beetle. And it has been in more movies, most of them comedies, by the way. But the title on this, A Little French History. If you know about the car and you know about France and in the automobile business, it's a wonderful title for that car, for that image. I looked at it differently too here, in that when you look at the car, the design of the car, the design of the window above it, they really fall into place. It's a simple and elimination of distractions. Now, I looked at this and said, you know, if that car might be the distraction, because you have a nice textured wall and window here without the car. So I think it's just a nice image and a very well chosen title. Composition and design principles. Whoever designed this building, I mean, the arches, it all works very well in this hallway, this portico. But again, tonal separations and local contrast in mono. And here, the effective use of light and shadows in a monochromatic image. It's very well done. The timing of the day, the timing of the shot, the position of the shot showing both the vertical lines of the columns and the light to shadow cast on it. Just makes all the difference. This was a blue ribbon awarded image. Appropriate post-processing here. Simplicity and elimination of the distractions. You just have the wave crest. Decisive moment in terms of the waves are falling. There's no pier, there's no surfer, there's no horizon line. It's just a successful image that is with an artistic flair to it, both in the design and in the colors. And lastly, storytelling. What is going on here? You've got a clear subject and visual hierarchy. We see the hierarchy of these other people. We see the guy in the shirt, and we see the dealer. And the dealer's got his hands on a stack of chips. Now, are the chips going down? And is that smirk on his face because he hit? Or are the chips being picked up? And is the smirk, what did I do? Timing and decisive moments. All part of an image. This one was another award-winning image. Really, it would be a great documentary image if we had a documentary category. So, just talking briefly about how images are judged. They're going to be judged primarily on impact. Say that again, the importance of a strong first impression and the composition of the image. Technical excellence. The judge that will be judging the contest is going to look at these three categories as the highlights and then proceed on evaluating the image from that point. But those three areas are going to be covered in the judging, initially and most strongest, I should say. Some thoughts on consideration on judging the images. I saw this statement some time ago, and I think it's very true. Judging is informed by experience. People that are judging have a lot of experience in recognizing images, but every one of them are influenced by their individual perspectives. Every judge is bringing a different personal preference and experience. Maybe judging landscapes, maybe judging portraits, maybe judging monochromatic images only. There's a lot of different lifetime experiences getting them to that point. If we understand that these are subjective realities in the judging process, the photographs are being judged. I'm not being judged, my photographs are being judged. And respecting differing opinions. Sometimes that's very difficult. In F3C, when they used to publish the scores, and you would have three individual scores given by judges. On a 20-point scale, you'd be getting a 17 from one judge, a 14 from another judge, and a 7 from a judge. And you figured, what is the difference here? Recognize that some judges, their 14 or 15 is some other judge's 17 or 18. I look at it differently. That's why we have 3 scores and a composite in F3C. So anyways, just some thoughts on judges. You prepare the image. It's what you think is one of your better images. You wouldn't be presenting it. It's the image that you want the judge to see. And sometimes the results you get are what you would expect, and sometimes they're not what you expect. That's why it's a contest. That's why I call it a contest. Our contest is, this is a page from the website that lists the competition rules. They're highlighted in blue. You can see this right on the website. This is, like I said, the 2026. The images are submitted by clicking that spot on the website. It takes you into a page where you can drop the image in, where it will be evaluated by us for the correct category, and just that, really that's all we'll be looking at. If you want to enter the image, you choose the category. We're not going to allow a monochrome image in color. We will not allow a color in monochrome, but we will allow monochrome in animals and in the creative and people categories. So the rules are all online, and the deadline on it is it's the Monday, the 2nd of September. So anywhere from the 1st of August through the 2nd of September, you can load these images online, and they will be judged during the month of September. And we will have the results at the end of the September, and the awards will be as presented, as discussed earlier. The awards will be announced at the Zoom meeting on October 2nd, or October, whatever the Tuesday in October, whatever that date is. So, anyways, any questions on the contest or what we discussed here? David?
Is there a specific date, or is it just wide open?
It's wide open.
Wide open.
You've got the whole month, yeah.
Okay. I have found in the past that the most difficult category is the creative one. Can you kind of go over the boundaries of creative?
What we have done we have interpretive. I'm the competition chair. I should know that.
We have creative.
We have creative.
Yeah, here's your.
Well, but is there an interpretive? We have interpretive also?
Nope,
Okay.
we have creative, at least on the 2025.
Yeah, that's the same. Nothing's changed.
So-
So what is creative? Interpretive was a category. Let's back up just a little bit. Interpretive was a category that was dropped into F3C, and we picked it up. The whole concept between interpretive is we're all post-processing our images. I assume that. I think that's probably correct, that the majority of the people here are post-processing. When an image gets past being what a judge would consider to be natural and realistic looking, the sky is not the color of this chair. It's really a soft, the powder blue. Late in the evenings, high altitude, you can get a cerulean blue or something look. But reality, on a color image, it's got to be natural and realistic. If you're moving the sliders too far, it starts to look unrealistic. It becomes an interpretation, your interpretation of that image. That's the way you want it to look. So when it gets away from natural and realistic, it goes into interpretive.
But that's interpretive F3C, but for this, we don't have an interpretive. And creative, it says right here, what edits are not allowed? None. All photographic post-process edits are allowed in the creative category. Generative AI inserts are prohibited in all categories. So no, you can be all crazy, but don't ask the machine to do it.
You can talk about AI. Most of the software today is in some form using automotive intelligence or whatever, AI. There has been, Photoshop has really been using a generative AI in content-aware scaling, content-aware fill. That really is the early days of AI. We allow that. We've never pushed back on that. The thought is, and there will be a much deeper dive on that as far as the overall Florida rules coming. There is nothing you can add to that photograph that wasn't in the original image, and it's creative. If you're adding something to that image, it has to be photographically obtained. You've got to shoot a picture of it. You can bring it in, you can composite till the cows come home, but it has to be photographic images that you created. We don't want you pulling something offline for it. We wouldn't allow that. How do we know? Well, sometimes, well, I don't think we'll ever get to the point we'll ask for raw files here. That will happen in F3C going forward into next year. So AI, if you're using Topaz, you're using AI. Adobe just bought Topaz. I've seen Topaz elements already in denoise and in sharpen. The algorithms from Topaz are already being there used in the beta Photoshop right now. So it's kind of, we don't know what we want there. We know that you can't put a completely generated AI image in. We don't want that. That's not going to happen here. Everything that's done here has to be created with a camera. As long as you create it, you can put it into the creative category. Like I said, you can compost as much as you want. Composite, not compost. You can compost too.
Okay, I'm wrapping you up though, because you got to do your main thing. So what we'll do is, if you're going to dinner, ask him questions at dinner about this, but that way he can move into your regular, what would make this photo a winner,
Well,
right?
yes. This was the talk on the contest. It kind of ended at that. One of the things that we were asked, myself, Sean Trainer, and Bill McSherry were asked to have a conversation basically on images and what wins and what helps it. And I was particularly asked to show us an image that you had that was taken from whatever into a contest winner. So what I looked at, I had dug into the archives because I didn't know really what to do here. So we looked at something, and the idea is from capture to competition through the journey of an image, raw file through the editing decision, final submissions. This is something that, I got the wrong slide here. This is, we're not at the questions part of that yet. This was an image, let me back up here. Nope. This was an image that was created in 2008 or 2009. I was out west, riding along, paying no attention, and I looked over and saw this rock in this tree, and I said, that's something I've never seen before. Subsequently, I've seen hundreds of them. But I stopped and crossed over the valley and come up, and I enjoy taking wide-angle shots, panoramas. And I looked at this as a panorama because this was, this pile of rocks was sitting, erosion was sitting on top of this thing. So anyways, I went and took the shot and entered into the contest, and it scored well technically, but it just wasn't, it was not an award winner. It was a ribbon winner. And one of the comments made was that the image, the subject needs to be closer. You got to have the subject closer. So the second phase went to just putting it closer, but you got the same kind of results there. Nice, it's sharp, it's there, but no, we don't want, that's not going to work. So that got put away. And a couple of years later, I was looking at it. When I was done shooting this thing at this point, I went up on to that rise and got on the front side of that rock. So the sun was really hitting the face of that, the left side of the image. And the right side of that image, when I got up there, the clouds moved around significantly and that thing got dark. So I got up and shot a 5-shot HDR image with it. And I knew they were in there, and I knew they they were not an easy shot to take, but I figured I would give it a try. So here's the raw shot from the center of that. Now when I looked at that, this is a complete different setup. The light you can see is kind of behind it. We've got pretty bright sky. We've got a background that's lit much better than the rock is lit. We've got some mistakes in there. We've got a sunspot from the lens, a lens reflection, and there's actually a color anomaly on the right-hand side, diagonal from the lens. And all of this didn't show up in this image, this part of the image. But when I looked at it, if you look at it and you look at the histogram, there is nothing crushing the shadows on the left-hand side. We've got all the information is there, and there's nothing blowing out on the right-hand side. So all of the information for that image is there. I can work with that. So what I did is brought it into Camera Raw. Now, everything that was done in Camera Raw, and this, by the way, is the current version of Camera Raw. The ACR that I had back in 2012, I think this is 2013, that this image was processed. It's much easier to work with this image today than it was then. What you see here is just all general tonal information. There was nothing here that was dug into. This was just all global adjustments on lighting, on saturation, on color adjustments, sharpening, light sharpening. But you see, again, you see the lens reflection there. What you don't see is the whole left side of that image. I shortened the slides on this presentation because I talk a lot. And this could very easily be a 50-slide presentation. We're down to, I think, 8 or 9. On the left-hand side of that, there's a halo, the whole left side of that image. And when you do HDR images, you have to be very careful with that because that's going to happen. Much easier to work with today and really eliminate, but in those days it wasn't. So what happens here is that when you look at this, there's a lot of work needed on that. And if you look at all the areas we have to go, I mean, the clouds, the foreground, the foregrounds, and the repairs, and the subject itself. Now this image actually started out, one of the repairs on this was the foreground. And you can see the foreground is much lighter in this image than it was in the original one back here. Somehow that slipped in on me. And again, like I said, there were a lot of slides that were eliminated from here. But the point I want to make here is that all of these areas needed to be adjusted, and they needed to be adjusted separately and differently. And that required masks. And it also required adjustment layers in Photoshop. And this is a slide shot I took out of one of them just to show you what this would look like and what the masks for that look like. It doesn't show you the detail, but this slide, you get some sense for what was done there to bring that image into what I call a presentable image, a presentable landscape. There were some adjustments done quite after this, but you get a sense for the number of levels. All of those black spots on there are masks. All of the white spots are global adjustments. The two on the top don't mean anything. That's for printing. That's for making the image look the same to the printer as it does on the computer screen. So the final image, this is what ended up entering one in the contest, and then carrying that forward, it was entered into the year-ended print review and ended up as print of the year in Pittsburgh Photo Club in 2013-14. So that was from nothing, from this to that was over 4 years, and it really was a lack of interest that caused that between, because I didn't know that this image was there. I mean, when you look at the raw files on it, it was kind of disheartening. I was learning about HDR photography at the time, and not looking at both ends of the shot, making sure that it isn't blown out or it isn't crushed in the background. On this one, I was lucky that it wasn't, that all the data was there. So, and I still think that there's room for this, and I just want to play with it a little more. But that's the story of the odyssey of that image and that shot, and how it got me a plaque. Questions?
Did you use Photoshop or Lightroom for that?
I use Photoshop almost exclusively. I've grown up with Photoshop since since 2000, 1998 maybe. Scanning, using Photoshop for scanned images, both, well, not really negatives, scanned prints. So yeah, I've just kind of grown with Photoshop. Photoshop and Lightroom are very similar. When you look at this, let me get back to that. When you look at this, the side panel there, that's very similar to Lightroom. There's very similar, very minor differences, but the algorithms, the guts, the engineering behind Photoshop and Lightroom are pretty much the same. You can do much more with Photoshop in terms of getting into pixel changes that you can't do in Lightroom. Lightroom to me is more of an organizer, and I'm not a very good organizer. I have a good file structure by year, by month, you know, and by going back to 2000, 2001, I guess, is when I started cataloging them. Lightroom in its very early days, I have that. So anyways, I use Photoshop only. Yeah, you were.
When you, so I know we're shooting raw, when you first get that image, what do you first look at and say, what should I adjust? Like, what is your first steps? Like, do you go to auto? Do you say, no, I'm gonna start from the top bottom, bottom up, left, right?
The first, well, in this case, the first thing I looked at was to make sure that I had information on both ends of the histogram, that I didn't crush anything at the top or the bottom. So the camera, the sensor is going to grab everything. You know, if the data's there, Photoshop or Lightroom will pull that data out. You'll be able to see it. Whether, you know, what it's like when you're done with it or when you work with it, that remains to be seen. But as long as the data's in the image, Photoshop and Lightroom will get that out. Where do I go first? I just want to see what's there. So I'll do global adjustments on the whole thing to see that I have something there. Is there something there? And then you work on it from that point forward, because generally when you talk about the hierarchies of the image, you've got a subject, hopefully it's a clear subject, you know what it is, and then you've got all these other elements that are sitting in there. Some of them are distracting, some of them add to it, and you work on those individually until you're happy with what you have. Sometimes that's a couple days work, you know, because sometimes I get real anal and I don't reach any end. So I guess I'm running out of time here.
Yeah, I guess you gotta get your cohorts up, right?
Bill's up.